What if you could borrow from real hostage negotiation tools to win fair deals, calm tense conversations, and connect fast with anyone? Most of us rely on scripts, or talk too much, or get hijacked by other people's emotions, or even our own. These things cost trust, sales, and opportunities. My guest today, Susan Ibitz, breaks down practical tactics that you can use today, from her Me Too moment for instant rapport, warm plus assertive framing, and how to negotiate without scripts, and how to navigate irrational behavior at work, at home, and even on stage. Now, I'll say this episode may not be for everybody. If you really don't like to step outside of the norms of society, if you're the kind of person who prefers to fit into the molds that are presented for you and live by the archetypal images that society has ready for you, then this may not be the episode that you're going to get the most out of. If you are someone who likes to at least understand irrationality and maybe see where there might be opportunity within that, to let your freak flag fly, to embrace the oddities, quirks, weirdness about ourselves, and maybe even leverage that to help you find your people, your tribe, the places where you are going to resonate and make the biggest impact, rather than trying to please everybody, then this episode might be very much for you. Now, I apologize in advance. There are some audio issues, not least that Susan has about 6 cats that were running riot whilst we were recording, and I've done my best to try and edit out that background noise, but there is still some of it in the episode, so you will hear it. You'll also hear it referred to by Susan as we speak. Also, I did my very best to make the sound quality as good as possible, but there was a limit to what I could do. So hopefully you will at least find it listenable. I would say this is absolutely worth sticking with what may not be perfect audio to get what Susan has to share. Now, also, Susan trained in international hostage negotiation, much like you may have come across Chris Ross. We talk about him a little in the episode too. She's worked across interrogation, political consulting, and behavioral analysis. She now teaches leaders how to influence ethically and effectively. If you're still with us, enjoy the episode. Welcome to Present Influence, the show for speakers, coaches, and expert business owners who want to deliver more impact, influence, and inspiration in their message. My name's John Ball, keynote speaker, communication coach, and your guide on this journey to mastery level communication skills. Susan, welcome to the show. I've really been looking forward to speaking to you. We're going to get into some interesting topics today, and we're going to be looking much more, I guess, on the influence side of things. But first of all, welcome. Great to be speaking with you today.
Thank you for having me, John, because when I approached to you, I know my email was not conventional introducing myself, and it says, it's perfect, like, great. You need to find your people first, then define your business. So you're my people. Love it.
It's the stuff that stands out that gets attention, right? I get so many pitches from people that all look the same, or they don't really tell me anything, or they just tell me how good their guests are or how good they are. And I don't want that. I want someone who's actually going to be able to talk, have an interesting conversation with, and talk about some interesting things. And you definitely fit the bill for that. So definitely, I think this is going to be a great episode. So let's get into some really interesting stuff, because you have such an amazing background. And I'm not going to ask you to list it all off. Hopefully people have listened to the introduction to the show. But I will ask, one of the things that I think was very much striking and stood out for me when we spoke, and in your pitch as well, was that you have been involved in hostage negotiations. And I can't imagine that there's a more vital area for influence skills than that. Can you share a little bit about what that experience has been like, and maybe what have been the key elements of influence and persuasion for you working there?
I says, you cannot talk about pain if you don't have the pain. I don't say a doctor need to have cancer to understand cancer patients, but I feel hostage of my own persona for a long time, because like we were talking, I was yellow. I want to fit in everybody's box, and I don't fit in any box. I have Asperger. I dyslexic. I was born in Latin America. I have a huge accent due to my dyslexia, and I understand I was hostage of what people was expecting from me. So when I was in my late 30s, I went to London to study. Love London. That's where I used to live before they bring me to the United States when I was 29. And I was doing this master, and I found out that some of the people in the master was spotting for people that were special to bring to some units in London. So they approached me and says, we think that you have Asperger. Like, oh, because I don't have anything else in my life to go with. He says, actually, it's great. 6 every 10 of our profilers have what you have. So, and your IQ is, we think, is higher than normal. Can we test you? They test me and they found out it's true. And says, wait a minute, there's nothing wrong with me. So I went back to the United States. I politely denied that opportunity. I need to let it go. And I start studying. Somebody contacted me and says, I think that you will be great to be a hostile negotiator. Why? It's not because you belong to any forces. It's because what you can bring to the table is the understanding that you can influence people and understand how to influence people through the words they use. More important, what they don't use. That's how they caught the Unabomber. So I studied hostel negotiator 1 and 2. I was allowed to be level 3. That's most of the hostel negotiator, and graduate as an international hostel negotiator. Please don't be in a plane with me and avoid Japan and somebody take it. Just, I don't want to. I love the theory.
Let's hope not. But how did you feel when about the whole thing? When that was suggested to you, were you just straight away like, yep, that's for me. That's what I want to do? Or what came up for you there?
Okay, as a 5 years old to have free pass in Disney World. What? Everybody
So-
want to be one of them. When you says that, like when I don't want to talk about me and says, oh, I'm a former civilian hostage negotiator trained by military interrogation and 18 years political consultant. They don't care what is my name. Just go for it. Everybody I was telling you, people watch serial killer series to relax. Like it's fascinating, not for dating. So I went through the process, but more important, I understood how we are judgmental. So we says, oh, this person is trying to commit suicide, because you have two kind of hostage negotiator. The hostage taken, that is an active shooter that become a hostage situation where you negotiate 99.9% on the phone. Sometimes the team not even from the same state or the same country. And after that, you have barricades. Barricades is when somebody tried to commit suicide and your job is I'm sorry for the noise. I have six cats. Then I cannot keep holding. So it's not John's fault. It's my cat's fault. And you need to try to that person not to commit suicide. And you cannot lie. You cannot say yes, no, and then you cannot lie, because that person is going to be in 2 weeks on the same position and you're going to be hold for that position. So without lying, how you convince someone so desperate to relinquish? You have two positions in hostage negotiator. I put a bullet between your eyes, or you come out and handcuff you. So understanding how that works give me a parameter. I'm like, I don't need to be judgmental. I need to forget my biases. I need to forget what I think about it. And I need to ask more questions, and I need to understand. Doesn't mean that I get where you ended up there, but I need to understand why your story get you there. We have three stories: the person's story, my story, how I am there, and the story we put together to make sure you leaving from that situation. So it's come from a storytelling that people who does public speaking, they need to understand. It need to be a story. Doesn't mean that your story is important, but the story where you're going to get people there. And that's what hostile negotiation gave me. And after that, I went to Harvard to study negotiation with lawyers. Not the most proud time of my times, because I have fun having fun with them, because I was one step ahead with them, the lawyers. So, but yeah, that's how much in deep get to that topic.
Cool. And so I expect most of us will never be in a position where we are required to do that kind of negotiation. But so you think story was a critical part of understanding this work and doing this work. Are there any other sort of communication techniques that you're able to share that might be helpful for other areas of life as well?
When you talk about communication technique, because I gave a workshop 2 weeks ago about public speaking, and I did it on purpose to understand, okay, what is public speaking? You go to the market and you want to know what is the fresh fish on the market. You need to establish a communication with that person, because what is your goal? To have a fresh fish so your guests are not sick. So in order to get that, you need to establish rapport. To establish rapport, you cannot be cold, but you need to warm and assertive. Warm and assertive and says, hey, John, how you doing? So you play the piano. Horrible playing piano, but I can tell you, I love to go to the concert. I know about Mozart, Rachmaninoff. So I care about your surrounded. I care about something that you care about to be showing. And I acknowledge my ignorance on the topic, giving you the expertise and give you the upper hand. But another way says that I know enough to appreciate what you're going to tell me. I have the assertiveness to know that what you're going to share with me is going to be appreciated because I have the background to understand what you're saying. I would define communication in that way. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a degree, it sounds, at least you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there is an element of, with the rapport, you're creating that likability factor and common points of interest that say, look, we are similar, at least in some way.
The Me Too is not the Me Too movement, is the Me Too moment. Then I started with this 20 years ago and got kind of derailed, and people says, change the name. No, I start first. I have a godfather rule. Everybody has something in common. You're from London. My last town was London. I love London. I was planning to retire there in England. England, I love England. I love the food. I love the accent. I love that nobody care about your accent. I love the at 5 p.m. we're going for a pint. I love that the elevator is live, that you call it flat. I love everything about all London, even the weather, because I'm a hermit, so it's an excuse not to go out. So that is the Me Too. So in everybody have something in common. I have talked to interrogators that says, well, we're in the same room. That is this thing that you have in common in a relationship. Why you are relationships, and as adult, when we look for a partner, you look for the Me Too. We like dogs. We love cats. We hate the government. You never know what are the things that bring you together. So sometimes that I says the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That is my Me Too moment. Why? Because we have something in common. Never be fake. We need white lies to lubricate relationships, but a good white lie need to be 75% true. I can says, how you doing? Like, oh, doing great. And I have a shitty day. I didn't sleep. I have a fight with my relationship. Yeah, I'm having a good day now because I'm talking with you. You don't need to know the other 25% that it's not working. So when people meet you on a networking or meet you in a place where they're expecting you to be social lubricant and be fluffy, don't make it too complicated. Be careful what you're sharing and not sharing. Oversharing, you have people that can be a liability and you have people who can be an asset. If every time then I pick up the phone and says, oh, God, it's Margaret. What is the drama today? I don't have my wife. Sorry, Margaret, go to the voicemail. Or I'm getting ready to go to a place and suddenly I asking myself, what the heck I'm doing here? Why I'm looking for an excuse to go? You have a communication with yourself that is a problem. You're not being honest with yourself. So how are you going to show up? How you're going to be talking with Margaret, how you're going to be interacting with our Margaret. Margaret is going to think that you're and not a nice person, when in reality, the problem is you don't communicate with yourself to says, Margaret, you're not my people, and it's okay.
So there's a somewhat strategic element in general communication as well, that at least is about bringing more, it sounds at least bringing more conscious awareness into what you think, what you say, how you say it, how you show. There's a lot of elements to keep in mind whilst you're communicating, especially in those professional situations.
I think you need to be strategic all the time. People, when I talk on people, say, I'm extremely transactional. I said, doesn't sound good. Why? You go to the doctor, you pay to the doctor to have a diagnostic. I'm going to the market, I'm going to pay for the bananas. So I approached to you because I wanted to put more exposure. My team is put again in my head, says, Susan, do it, or we're going to do it. And okay, I choose how to do it. I want to go places where I want to be, where I take the time to listen to the podcast. I know we have things in common that is going to be transactional for both. I'm going to give you a show. You're going to give me exposure, and we're going to have a conversation where we can leave each other better than when we find it. And we can give your audience something they can take. That is transactional and it's okay. Yeah. So it's nothing wrong to name the things how they are. When people says, what is the difference between influence and manipulation? Like whatever you want to name it. If you're going to make your kids eat broccoli because you hide it on the spaghetti, or you're going to put healthy French fries on the McDonald's packet, well, tell me what is the difference there? Not too much. Just how you approach it is the end goal of that. So if transactional wise, I approach you saying, okay, this is what we both can take about away from that. Transactional, manipulation, influence, it's not too different. People, I think, you get too caught on the words and not what is the idea of the situation you put it on.
Yeah. I think from my experience, and I say from my own point of view, really as well, I look at it in this way of like, it's always going to be those transactional elements. It should be. Life is all about that. We have to interact and transact with each other, and doing things like a podcast it's inevitable.
Yeah.
There's going to be a give and take there as well. But beyond that is also a level of connection that comes through there as well. So even if the connection is just for the interview time, or whether it goes on beyond that, you feel like there's something more than just hopefully at least something just more than the interaction, more than the transactional as well. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying is you can tomato is red and it's going to end up in my pizza. So it's the end goal. You have two ways. You care about the people care about the destination and people who care about the journey. I'm strategic. I'm completely left brain. I go to I don't waste my time. I get organized. I get things done. More people says, how the heck you manage so many things? Because when they need to get done, I don't think in the things that is going to happen later. So you need to have an end. So if you're a journey person, you're going to be wasting my time because I don't care how many sandwich I have. I need to know that I need to be in 2 hours in some place. Where are we going to stop? I don't care. I'm sure we're going to find food. I'm not going to be carrying 17 sandwiches. So it's not about the journey. It's what I need to conquer. That's the reason I'm a fixer. That's the reason I'm good at my job. That's the reason people call me. I'm not the traditional person that you're going to approach. I have clients who says, I never would hire you if I see on the media. I only hire because I know who you help. And other people says, you are my style person. And it's okay. I don't take it personal. You have a style. And again, narrow your niche, narrow your audience, pick your clients before you pick your business. Pick your audience before you're going to talk. Pick up how you're going to be perceived. Pick up who you're going to be before you put it out there. I told you, I was trying to be vanilla in the beginning and I was flunking until it says, okay, Susan, you're going to go full on who you are. Take it or leave it. And I pissed off 80% of the people to have my niche. That is that 20% of weirdos and I always say, be as weird as I am, please. That's great. That is my people. So I make it clear you need to be weird. And by the way, weird is amazing because the first circus wasn't animals, it was people. So people love crazy people.
Yeah. No, I think that's really true. I think we all want to. I've heard other people put it on the show, like saying things like "let your freak flag fly" and all those kinds of things, which I do agree with. Whatever the weird aspects are about you, that they're part of you, and we should own them and not try to just fit in with what we think people want us to be, because that's where you truly find your tribe and your following and your charisma as well. Because I think without those authentic elements, you don't really have charisma. You just kind of have a sort of beige personality that is not one thing or another. So I think that these elements are absolutely essential, that we should to some degree flaunt the stuff that is maybe a little strange about us or different, that it does help us to really find a tribe rather than just people thinking, oh, that's nice, they're nice. Yeah.
To agree that you need to have the acolytes. So if you says you're an expert in this, show that you're an expert and that you have the luxury to be weird. When people who want to pitch in Shark Tanks or any of the shows says, how are you doing? You look lovely when you're Steve Jobs, but so far you're present. It doesn't tell me you have your things together. You're going to say, I don't know. I'm going to ask my accountant. You're fighting for your life. So you need to be warm. You need to be assertive, and you can play crazy when you have substance. But if you're playing crazy for being crazy, you're Ted Bundy, who, by the way, was a genius. All these lunatics were genius. So you need to have something. You need to be good in something to have the luxury to be crazy or luxury to be yourself. You need to have a base. You need to have acolytes. You need to have a certain pedigree in what you do. So I'm good in accounting. No, I cannot make a check. My life depends on that. And the bank already knows me. Says, Susan is 600-year-old or the 900-year-old. And I'm like, they already know me. They call me and I correct the check and they release the check. I know them. So like Bronson and many people who is dyslexic says, I decide to be the best in my business and hire somebody writing the emails for me. But I'm good in what I do and nobody can touch my rear end in what I do because I 53 and I embarked in another master in October and actually was approved too. Neuromarketing and neuroscience in London in person that I cannot travel, and another one in Barcelona online. I'm going to do the Barcelona online. I'm going to stop? No. Why? Because you can say a lot of things about me, but you're never going to say that I don't have my things together. That gives me the luxury to be who I want to be. Now, in order to be that, you need to be something good that people can respect your work. When people say, "Oh, I'm a neuroscience, I studied with this and this," like, uh, what make you neuroscience? Well, I read this book and listen to like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm sorry for not being sorry, but you're not. I studied with Paul Ekman. Where? I took an online classes. He was giving the class? No, somebody else. Well, let me tell you, I moved my body to Manchester for a year study with him. Robert Cialdini. I moved to Arizona for 2 weeks to study with him. So let's reframe who you're talking to. I make the effort to do it. I make sure that I'm the only one in that field because I want to be the best in my field. The only place in my life I'm cocky is my job. Why? Because I know what I bring to the table that allow me to be crazy and my clients allow me to be crazy because they know I'm the leader.
But this is your ethos, your credibility, right? So you absolutely have to have that. We talked previously a little bit about there's another pretty well-known hostage negotiator with a pretty well-known book, Chris Voss. And we talked about him, and I know there are some points of difference. I know you know Chris as well, and there are some points of difference between what he teaches and maybe what you think about some of the things about never split the difference and things that he teaches. Can we get a little bit about understanding about what maybe some of the points of difference that you have there?
He had worked on the FBI as an international hostage negotiator. Nobody gonna take that from Chris. Actually, his first hostage negotiation was in a bank. I think was the only few hostage negotiator you're gonna find out that have a real, like, I'm gonna see your face hostage negotiation. He's brilliant in what he does, but I don't think that he translates to the civilians the understanding. I think his book is perfect. I think he brought his book by the ghostwriter that Never Eat Alone or something like that. Genius writer. Is great marketing, but I don't think it's a realistic understanding how life works. It's easier hostage negotiation than a real life negotiation. And actually, all the hostage negotiator I know, I ask the same question. You want to deal with your wife, your kid, or a hostage taker? I prefer an Al Qaeda terrorist than my kids because he have two options. My kids, they can play me the way I want. I talk to FBI, Mossad, CIA. I know that there's not that I work with them, but I have a chance to meet with them in conference when I'm gonna either speak was a guest. And it's different. So when it says never split the difference, is the concept of negotiation is splitting the difference. I give you something, it's completely transactional. So when you says never split the difference, we lead in thinking that we're going to have the cocky guy like, it's my way or the highway. Honey, let me tell you, short shoulder shrug, it doesn't tell me you're lying. Taking everything and not giving anything in exchange is not going to be a good negotiation. When you're selling a house as a realtor, you need to give the person what they're asking. If it's not called fraud, it's called you're not realistic. You ruin your reputation. So my concerns with that is not talking about his persona, then I respect his persona. I'm talking about the persona marketing that is building the theory of the book. And for some people, it's like the Bible. He's a genius marketer. He have that great, but in the theory practice, I do not agree. You need to negotiate transactional. I give you a good show. You give me you give me the space to do it. The audience, I hope they have takeaways they can take with them. It's okay. We meet on the middle. We always split the difference. And because I've been talking openly, an editorial comment says, can we split the cheese? Like, no, I will not going to get in somebody else's business. As Chris Voss business, I respect him. Do his job. I will not gonna fight with it. I don't have the need to do it. But when I have the chance to do it, it says, guys, if you have a selves and you have a client that coming from a car, and you want to sell sport, and he need a minivan. You need to meet on the middle. You need to give them maybe an SUV, not a minivan. You sell what you need the person have, but you're not going to sell the sport car when he have 4 kids. Now, you have a recently divorced dude in the 50s. Give me the most expensive car. I'm going to sell that car. Now we're talking, you have your ego fed up. I sell my car. That is a different scenario, but it still meets you in the middle. Always, always a negotiation is not. I hate when people come and says, oh, we spent $50,000 on these sketches and these screenplays to sell. We need to do this, and we need to go with this brief. That's what we need to sell. Like, no, you don't need a script. You need a manual. You need to have a company manual where you give people options to negotiate. If you're forced and says, hey, John, how are you doing? Well, my cat died. Oh, that is fixable. Let me tell you, I have the best cell phone when you can keep the picture. Like, no, that person need empathy. Go with them. I have gone in company sales to calls only for the fact that I'm going to hear what they say and says, okay, dude, if you don't drop the script, I'm going to drop the call. So you cannot go with the script. You need to move with the flow. Not always the client is true, is right. But what is right is what you need to understand. People want to be seen, heard, and understood. If I take everything from the table, you live with a new cell phone, but you live thinking that I never heard you, I never see you, and I never understood you. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's those connection elements again. You, one of your special or specialized areas, I should say, really, is irrational people, irrational humans. And I wonder what drew you into that particular area.
Really? You want to go there?
And what value does that kind of study have for the rest of us, for life in general, that we might be applicable?
Okay, I need to rearrange my chair for that. It's gonna be fun. I was married for 10 years with a borderline narcissist person. And I realized, like, what the heck? Why I ended up married with that person? Because he was the most fucked up fix I never need to do in my life. When he was diagnosed, not by TikTok 15 years ago, by a former FBI profiler, psychologist, no fun, for 11 months. The first thing I asked to the therapist is, why I'm here? What is wrong with me? And second of all, how long I have? I'm going to start having fun. To the point that one time the therapist says, okay, you're having too much fun with this dude. You need to file for divorce. Why want to intervene with the court? So I understand that no matter how rational I am at work, I'm human and I have my biases. And then I ended up 6 cats, more than 800 pair of shoes. Why? And they understand and discover behavioral economics, that the traditional way we think about people is irrational and it's not true. And I understand how advertisement work. I did my last thesis is how if I supposedly this is a glass of wine and I have French on the background and this wine is French, I'm probably going to buy more French wine up to 330 times more. Now, this is French wine and I have German music. I'm going to have a dissonance in my brain. To make it simple, you have Homer Simpson, 95% of your decisions. You have Albert Einstein, 5% of your decisions. Will you put Albert Einstein to change the light bulb? No. You need Homer Simpson. I wake up, feed my cat, do my breakfast, check my emails. I don't need to overthink that. It's automatically. I need that. The problem is when you're going to buy a house and you take Homer Simpson to give you advice. So we do as humans 35,000 decisions a day. 95% of them are irrational. From, I'm going to use red lipstick or brown lipstick. What am I going to be wearing? So those are decisions. What are you going to have for lunch? What are you going to t-shirt you're going to be wearing? What is the background? So you start checking, there are 35,000 decisions. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to snooze the alarm more times than one. Or I'm going to so those are decisions. So I'm fascinated. The reasons they take us to avoid the warning, avoid your guts. This is red flag when we're dating. It's a red flag. I should be buying this car. Why am I spending more money than I should in shoes? Why am I spending more money? Why I hired that person? Why I'm dating that person? Those are decisions that when you stop fighting with the fact that you need to understand and you understand you're irrational, you have control. Knowledge is power. So when I understand how irrational it can be, and yes, my client and the person in front of me is as irrational as I am. So the bad news you are, the good news everybody else is. So if you find out that and you take control knowing that, imagine what you can do with your life. That's the reason people is president, people are CEOs, and you are not.
Seems fair enough. So to some degree, then the difference between the sort of rational and irrational there is what's of consequence and what really is more inconsequential. Is that right?
Okay, if you are going to talk about consequences, because sometimes people confuse that because you're irrational, you don't have consequences or have consequences. You get to the step and consequence and 95% irrational and a stare that is not safe completely in a flip-flop. Now, the consequence of that is that when you feel that you're falling, you grab something that's secure. So you have a stare that is bubbly, and instead to use flip-flop, you choose the consequences of the outcome. You're in the right shoes and wearing a gear that protects you. To me, it will be nuts to clean windows. But those guys have all the harness to be safe. To me, is the most irrational fear, height. So no matter how much you pay me, my life depend on it, I will not going to be there. But they understand the consequences and not to take the measurement. And maybe it's irrational and irresponsible to jump and do that window because they can leave a widow with kids. But the rational part is how much you measure the risk of those consequences. But you don't know the measurement of the risk. You don't know how to prevent the risk if I'm not aware that 95% of my decisions are irrational. Again, we're coming back, knowledge is power. If I don't know, then I'm preparing a tech talk and says, irrational human, why you're so stupid? ... including me. And people love it and says, what are you going to do with that? No idea. I have the title. So don't take it. It's already printed. So it says, because I know. So I start with all the irrational things that we do, the people I married, the hair choices. Okay, John, you're younger than me. Pick a picture when you was in the late 10s and the 20s and 30s, hairdo, clothing side. And you says, what the heck I was thinking? I did a perm during the pandemic because I couldn't find a perm. What I did in the 70s? And I look at those pictures like, what the heck I was thinking is 40 years ago. I worked in fashion for many years as a behavioral unit analysis. What the heck I was thinking? I did what I can with what I had on that moment, living in the middle of nowhere in a town where nobody understands what is a stylist. They cut the cow hair and your hair. That's where I live. So a perm was the most decent way to fix the problem. I did what I can with what I have. So that is being irrational. Yeah, I knew my consequences, pros and cons was even shaving my head again, probably going to make a hole in weeks where not be able at that point, or have a perm by a person who cut hair on a cow. Not doesn't mean there was the right decision to make, but was the only one I have.
Yeah. I mean, how pretty were the cows? I know. I'd want to know. I'd want to know. So, I guess a lot of people would think that getting up onto a stage is pretty irrational, to get up and speak in front of hundreds of people, that there's millions of people who wouldn't entertain the idea, who are incredibly afraid of it. But sometimes it is doing these irrational things that get us to good results as well. Yeah. Or would you say that's more rational?
Because it's N. When people says, what happened, I like N, I put it this new last week because people said, N, what do you want me to do with that? Check the design. So the first time that I need to do a webinar that is a certain way to public speaking, I throw up before, during, and after. I have enough slides in a bucket so I can throw up. And people says, wait a minute, you prepare president. Like, again, nobody shoot the vice president. It's different. And I says, to the people who go to Shark Tank, Tech Talk, QVC, and public speaking and talking in front of the media or talking to the team, it says the day you lose the butterflies on the stomach is the day that I will says kill yourself, because not figuratively, literally, because you lost that. And another thing people confuse that we talk is, and you says like, oh my God, it's aha moment. Introverts are painful to talk in conference, but introverts shine in an audience for 3,000 people they're training. And he says, why? Because introverts are introspective and extroverts love feedback. So people is claiming and clapping, you love it. The best comedians like small crowds, and they're extremely introverts and shy, because you have a crowd work, what is called crowd work. The people threw things to you. They're really good on prompt. And so like what prompt comedy is when people says, okay, throw me a topic. Trees. Oh, okay. Let me tell you. You look the leaf or you look the tree, and you start building a story. Oh my God, that was a lot. Start building a story based on the tree of the leaf. So you're introspecting, helping you to get to the point. Introverts suffer and hate public speaking because the crowd is mixed. You don't have introspecting. You don't know who's on the crowd, and you start getting your head going. An introvert doesn't like it. Introverts like training, coaching, and one-on-one relationship. Extroverts love the crowd, love talking, and because whatever you bring them to them, they shine. So if you're an introvert, do not think that it's painful, physically painful for you to talk in front of people. Is that your introversion, the way you recharge energy, the way that you are getting more social, the way you have your energy is completely different. But you need to understand how painful it is. So you can do public speaking when you're coaching in a small crowd where the people is selected to your turf. No, your turf is selected to attract people, because sometimes my people says, oh, we're going to put this title, like, but it's not true, but you're going to bring audience. No. I will not gonna adapt myself to your rhetoric. You need to adapt the rhetoric to myself. And you get to a point in your career where you can do that. In the beginning, you can't, but as soon as you can, and if you tailor your crowd in the beginning, it's going to be extremely helpful, because that's going to help you to get to the point you want and get the right crowd since the gig.
Interestingly, though, I'd say most of the professional speakers or public speakers I know are more naturally introverted than extroverted. So even though it's harder, and I would generally class myself as being naturally introverted, although I certainly push through that to a great degree. But it's interesting to me, at least, that so many introverts do go to it. But I do feel like a part of the reason for that, certainly for myself and for many of the people I've worked with, has been to do with the personal growth that happens when you challenge yourself in these ways that maybe do seem irrational and put you into situations that are incredibly uncomfortable.
You know what? Jerry Seinfeld, Oprah Winfrey, Lady Gaga, all these great performers are introverts. And people says it's incoherent. Like, no, when you talk about what you know, nobody can touch your rear end. Let's put it that way. And if you see the routines, I have seen this. I have a lot of friends that are stage manager. I don't know how I ended up with that crowd. I love it. Even I have clients, they have Andrea Bocelli, they do in the Coliseum in Rome. So I have traveled to see those concerts. And that people said 2 hours before the show, no matter if the theater is burning, you don't bother them. And after the show, they don't want to talk to anyone, and they're cranky. So what happened with Ellen DeGeneres or Oprah, and says, I don't know how much that person, and I don't want to get on the politics of that, I don't know how much that person is cranky or is highly introvert that never was introduced properly to the team and explain what as introversion happened. Because if you gonna talk to me before I go to a crowd or after a crowd, I'm gonna chop your head. So if you see me in that context outside of the stage, you're gonna think I'm a bad person. oh, I'm cranky and I don't like people. I kind of don't like people, but anyway, another topic for another podcast is that my introversion asked me to, Susan, you need to get your energy ready for when you are in front of the people, you give everything you have. So you need to back it up. Oh my God, again, a lot. I couldn't close the dogs, the cat. So people is my fault. I have 6 cats that I shouldn't close, and I left the door open and I cannot catch it.
I'll
So.
do my very best to minimize the interruptions from the cats. Don't worry.
But they're cute. I can show you pictures.
That's a different podcast.
Yeah, but yeah. The people is introvert. You're introvert, but you help other people to talk and says, do you need to be the best speaker? No, I need to know your pain. I says, what make me good at what I do is you have one of them. That's not. So what I need to understand is your pain. I need to understand how difficult it is so I can work with you and give you things. For example, let's talk about pets. In the morning, when I need to do a lot of exposure, I take 15 to 20 minutes to play with them. That get my dopamine, get my oxytocin, no matter how dark is the day. When I see pets, because I'm a rescuer and because of my Asperger, I have that relationship with pets, the animals than people, because they give you love unconditionally. I love them working all over. So if you watch in your cell phone 5 minutes of videos of pets, your dopamine and oxytocin is going to be high. So look for your happy place when you need to go there. And it's about finding your happy place. And happy places can come back from many, many, many places. Sometimes you put a picture of those shoes that you're going to buy and you cannot afford and says, okay, if I put up with this, I can buy the shoes. Perfect. Let's do that.
Yeah. It certainly explains why so many people are watching cat videos online. And
number one research. Do you know what is the number one body language? Google body language of cats, second body language of dogs, and then body language of kids. By 2030, we're going to have more pets per capita. Thank you, guys. More pets per capita than kids. We do more adult pampers than kid pampers. I'm a data person. So yeah, I'm just an average American.
Certainly looking at dog videos is my thing. I love that, and I do get those feelings from watching those kinds of, especially the sort of rescue videos and stuff. But I haven't yet managed to convince my husband that we should get a dog. I'm still working on that one.
That's the reason I'm single, so I don't need to ask for permission. I apologize.
And I should have got the dog when I was single. That would have solved it all. But.
Actually, you know what? Most people has to do with behavior and try to please everyone. And I think it's important when you need to define your avatar. When I start working with someone says, okay, who is your avatar? Your what, who, when, why, where. When I decide to move from the big city to having a weekend house and during the pandemic making my home, and I by mistake and failure I ended up with 6 cats. People says you should have a partner and doing what, like, why? If I do those things, if I move to the forest and commute between the cities, if I have 6 cats, the person I'm going to find is narrow to the niche. We're going to think alike. We're going to be thinking about the same needs. I narrow my field. I make it simple to relate with someone. And I met a guy that is allergic and says, okay, I'm going to go to allergies, and he have 3 dogs. I have 6 cats. It's going to be a zoo. But guess what? He understands because he doesn't have pets. He have rescue stories. So I'm going to match with somebody who have rescue stories. So too late, you're married, you have the ring, so you need to negotiate. We can talk about negotiation later. But
cool.
People wait for what if, when and guess what? People get how many stories we hear, retire and die 2 weeks later. Is going to travel when retire and have a hip replacement, cannot be sitting on the plane for 3 hours. I don't wait anymore.
I can't follow my brother's strategy with getting a dog was just to go out and get one, and his wife was not happy about it, but first, tolerated it.
Look, okay, go to the park and see what dog he likes. You want a puppy? He want a story. He want to be the hero of the story, rescuing a puppy. Bring a female friend that he's going to be nurturing and playing his ego and says, okay, I want to rescue a puppy. Bring it. And you can cut this part or make it not to hear this podcast. Take it to a rescue place and says, oh my God, let somebody tell the story if he's a story eater. So tell the story, what you doing with who you saving. That's how they sell me the cats that I was fostering because they knew that nobody want them and I'm the only one able to fix them. Yeah, they fixed me 6 cats.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I've often thought that probably the only thing that would make that work was like if it was a rescue situation, like we would, like neither of us want kids, but if it was a rescue kind of operation, we would. And same with dog, or same with a cat, or pretty much any being in need, that would work.
First, you need to understand why not. When it says when you have the no, actually you have place to negotiate. If I says yes, and says okay, yes, what? Yes to what? To have a dog, to have a rescue. When you says no and says, okay, why no? This is when you're like, okay, I want to know why. Because you says no doesn't mean that I'm going to take it because I want a dog and I want to meet you in the middle. You understand? Don't take it all. You give them the power and says, okay, it's not, so I take no. You have the right on this transactional conversation to know why. I says, well, I'm afraid nobody's going to take them and we cannot go on vacation. Now we know why. It's not that he doesn't want to have a dog. Is that he's afraid that it's going to affect. When I decided not to have kids, it was, I'm not going to be good in everything that I do. I didn't have the best childhood and I don't want to repeat the pattern. I don't think I'm going to be a good mother. So I'm saving another kid from therapy. I did it from the future kids. And by the way, I didn't want to give my mother the chance to say, I told you, so it's going to be like you. I was afraid, terrorized, it's going to be like me. But it was conscious decision. And when I got married, I says, I was not going to have kids. He ended up, he wanted to have kids. Good for you. But I make a conscious decision. So when I met someone that was single and says, I don't want to have kids. A, I wasn't the best child. Second, I didn't have the best childhood. And some people says, well, you can fix that. That's what my brother did. Good for him. I will not going to do it. So no is a chance to know why and open a conversation. So never talk and take a no. Then Chris talked about the same. And I agree with that with Chris. No is a chance to know why. When you have yes, you don't have too much to negotiate. But if I say no, actually you can mix the conversation to yes, because this is okay. Mr. Bloomington on the corner, she loved to take dogs. Okay, instead to have a big one, we can have a small one. Still 4 legs, 1 tail. Love you. Says, what about cats? They're more independent. I used to have a dog and I get too attached to him. I says, cats, I can leave them for 4 days when I'm going to the city and they're independent. Maybe it's a little more furry, says meow instead of wolf. And maybe he doesn't want the responsibility. Choose your battles. And no is a really good opportunity. When the audience says no, says, guys, you agree? No. Tell me why. And tell me what is your experience. And now you have a debate with your audience. It's always about playing the strength because your strengths coming from the same place they come in your weakness.
So just exercising your curiosity there is what's going to take it to a deeper conversation. What about though in more maybe business negotiations, like conversations with bookers, for example, people who you may be speaking to get an event or maybe to work with a client? Is it the same principle?
I would say you need to know what you are able to leave on the table if you're negotiating for somebody else. First, don't say, this is me, take it or leave it. Like, no, that's only for the movies. I did a lot of negotiation with the union, and I don't know how in England and Europe is negotiation with the union, but here is kind of harsh. The union is, to be clear, Kennedy's father, when Kennedy wanted to be president, negotiated with 2 people, the mafia in Vegas and the union. That's how strong they used to be, not the same way now. But when I need to negotiate with them, says, okay, guys, you need to look good. I need to look good. I'm going to tell you what I'm allowed to tell you. So this is my list with what here in this envelope. I know what is my file and number. I can want to start at 100 and give you 10. You need to do the same. We can have coffee, laugh about it, and people think that we're yelling to each other. So I know what I'm going to take on the table or it's not deal on the table. Have a bad deal is better not to having a deal. Why? Because we walk away. So you start talking about rationalizing the negotiation, and let's meet in the middle. You need to leave this room with something. I need to leave from the room. Now, how the journey is going to have with the negotiation, you play it the way you want it. You want to be right or you want to win. The biggest problem with negotiation is you're going to be the ego-driven person. No, I was telling you about let's put it in something that everybody can relate, even married people, because in some point you were single. This guy that I met. So I met on an app, and it's the first, because I have a picture of my cats. So you know what you're dealing with. The first thing is, do you think your sexiness is going to cure my allergies? And says, dude, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, even if I'm 20 years old. And I says, how bad is your allergies? And says, well, that bad that I can kill me. Says, you know what? I would die to know you, but I know health issues at this age are complicated. I will not going to play with the game. Or you met me, you're going to negotiate, and I'm going to end up 911, calling 911, 2:00 in the morning, killing you before I have a ring on it. It's not going to happen. And he says, for what you says, I think I'm going to be missing someone amazing. And it says, you like travel, like love travel. It says, what happened if you like me and with my cats? Well, I already texted allergists, doctors to go over and see. And it says, huh. So again, I was negotiating, talking about, okay, it says, probably I'm not going to go to your house. I'm going to be introduced slowly to them. I'm going to see if you have hair on your skin. Let's negotiate, because I have 3 dogs. They're over 90 pounds. So, well, between your 6. So we start negotiating. We don't know each other yet, but we're willing to understand that the end goal is over 50. Finding a partner is more difficult than when you're 20s. And we understand the consequences. But if you have a young negotiator with someone who is older, you have a person who comes from a negotiating part that doesn't understand the topic. Now your negotiation is flunk. So you need to have defined and desire and clear what is the outcome you're negotiating. I'm negotiating to be happy. Can I give away the cat? No. They're all under a year and a half. So they're going to be with me for 16 years. They have a 5-year Labrador and 2 1-year Labrador. Another 16 years. We're stuck on the same. We love our pets, and it's non-negotiable, because when your kids are old or you don't have kids, it's non-negotiable. Pets become your family. So we know that. How are we going to make it work? I need to make my vet higher and he get injections. That's a negotiation. And I put it in a context that everybody can understand what is negotiating.
Yeah. It makes me think of that Stoic principle of the obstacle is the way, that generally in life, if something is too easy, we often don't want it. Like, if it's easy to have, we don't want it. But when there's challenge there, that becomes the way to growth and development and interesting things. Like, we need challenge. We don't grow without challenge. We don't develop without it. And it's kind of about having the right kinds of challenges in the right kinds of situations that create those opportunities for development, for something to move or change, or for a conversation to go deeper. I find it fascinating from that perspective, that we often think we wish our lives were easier, but if we actually really think about it, we probably don't. If life was too easy, it would be boring, right?
Your strengths are your weakness. And okay, guess who made it to this? Hi, this is malt. By the way, you know when I know the name of my cat? Scotch, whiskey, bourbon, malt, tequila, and vodka. I don't have cats. I have a
theme. I'm spotting a theme.
Yeah. So your strengths are the same coming from your weakness. So I don't have weakness for people. I have weakness for pets. I know that. So it's going to be difficult to negotiate. You need to understand what are the problems. When you need to have a conversation or negotiation, says, what is non-negotiable? No, but I want to tell you, no. What is non-negotiable? What is the things that you cannot negotiate with? And I do it in dating. I do it in business. And people think even then I don't have feelings. I do have feelings for the right things. When you call me, it's because you need to fix something, because your emotion getting on the way to fix this. That is the problem. So you call me because I'm not biased, because I don't care. I have a paycheck. I'm a mercenary. Guess what? Being a mercenary, in that point, you need somebody who's less emotional. So you need to get the things done. So you're always negotiating with something. You always know your obstacles first. If you want to go to Europe, okay, you have probably three options. Once you get in lot and the UK, you can take the underwater, not even a ham. That no, I watched too many movies in the United States where those things collapse. You're not gonna get me there even if you drug me. So I'm gonna take a boat or I'm gonna fly. There are two options. I know what are the options to negotiate. We're going to see prices. What is the journey? What are we going to do? So that's what happened. And during Europe, we can take a train, we can rent a car. So, but you have options to go there. My obstacle is go from London to Europe, to the continent. When I'm there, it's no more obstacle. Let's see what life get us. When I'm going to Europe, I'm backpacking. I'm going to Goodwill and I get all these used jeans and t-shirts and Walmart and like, I threw clothing with my backpack and people are like, what? Oh, I'm going to hostels. I love to go to uncomfortable places out of my comfort zone. People are like, what? Yeah. That's the reason I travel alone. That's the reason I have friends in China. So the obstacle is my obstacle. When I decide to start doing this journey once a year to Europe, is to go to hostels. And I'm too old for hostels. Guess what? I'm not the only one. I found people in the 60s and 70s. So the obstacle was me being afraid to be in front of people. And I decided to carry that obstacle in a way that, okay, what if the obstacle is the best thing can happen? What if that obstacle is going to allow me to have friends all over the world? That's how I go to Bordeaux to have wine in France. I'll go to Portugal, Italy, because I have friends all around the world. Why? Because the obstacle become my best strength, being afraid to talk to strangers.
Yeah, I think certainly it inspires me to want to do something but not go to hostels. That's my idea of hell.
Okay. We remember the hostel movie, and I was having lunch with a friend that she suddenly became widow at the age of 56, horrible. She went home, he was dead, clean bill that morning from the doctor, horrible. And it says, hey, I open an office in London now. It says, I'm going to go with you. Like, I need to tell you, I'm not going to B&B. Like, you have an apartment? Like, no, I'm going to hostel. Like, what the heck? It says, you were married for 32 years. Have you ever done anything crazy? No. Maybe it's the time to do it. It's just like, let me think about it. It's not enough wine on the table yet to decide. Like, so I need to put it drunk. But she's thinking about it. So why not hostel? Tell me, John, why you wouldn't go to a hostel?
Oh gosh, I haven't been to a hostel since my early 20s, and I think it's one of the big reasons now why I wouldn't is I don't have a high level of tolerance for other people the way that I used to.
What if you see it that can help you to manage Vaseline suit, meaning that you learn to ostracize yourself from a stupidity and actually have fun? What if we look up? So you see what I'm doing there?
I could see that. I see the reframe. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I don't think it's something I will explore, but I will look at other opportunities to go in the similar path because
What is your
I think it's
drink of
interesting.
choice?
Well, for me, it's red wine generally.
Okay, I'm gonna load it. After the second bottle, probably you're gonna agree. Hey,
Yeah.
no matter how I'm gonna get you there.
That's a different kind of negotiation, but I like it. I've really been enjoying this conversation, Susan. There's so many areas that we could go into that are just fascinating, and it's really interesting to someone who has your unique perspectives on things as well, which is great to hear. I wonder for our listener who maybe wants to find out more about you and how maybe even to work with you or learn from you, what would be the best way for them to do that? Where should they go?
There are two Susan Ibitz all around the world. We're both in academia, but I'm the most exposed. So I would say Google Susan Ibitz and see what you conquer and see what stick to you. I have websites for companies and research and YouTube. I'm all over the place. But I always love to see, Google me. Says, that is easy. Yeah, I want to see what stick with you. Because I'm the same person, but I'm like an onion. I have many shades. I can be bit. I can be the negotiator. I can be the interrogator. I can be the kind. I can be the empath. I can be the crazy. I can be all that people. That's make me who I am. I want to see what stick to you. So it would be easy to test SusanIbitz.com. Yeah, that is what it says, the website, the corporate. But let's see what stick with you. What are the newsletter? Is the videos? Is the new podcast, Irrational Human, where I talk about, like, I always took stories about irrational people that I met, and I think it's amazing. Always tell the story, never the person involved in the story. Be discreet, remember. But yeah, Google me, see what happened. You never know what life is going to take you.
That's a great point, great note on which to end our conversation today. Susan, thank you for coming and being a guest on Present Influence.
Thank you very much. And again, apologize the audience. John is lovely. He have a patience. When you says, I don't have patience for people, you do. He has been really patient with my cats. You're being an adult. I don't know how the heck you edit this, but I love you for it.
I am lucky enough to have very good audio enhancing software that will probably cut out most of the background. Probably not all, but most of it.
So it's Susan Ibitz -responsibility -irresponsible -irrational. Makes sense.
It's all good. Susan, thank you. In review of this episode, hopefully you're now at least feeling ready to negotiate smarter, read people quicker, and build real authority without posturing. If you keep relying on canned lines or pure logic, you will lose the room to emotion, bias, and fatigue. So rewatch and note 3 moves to practice this week. Open with a genuine me to connection. State warm plus assertive intent. Trade fairly, knowing what you can and cannot put on the table, and then test one tactic in your next call or meeting. These are the same principles Susan used in high-stakes environments and that top negotiators use to get durable yeses. If this helped, make sure you subscribe to the show. Drop your biggest takeaway into the comments, and maybe even share this with a friend who negotiates for a living. Wherever you're going, whatever you're doing, have an amazing week. We'll see you next time.